Quiet on set. Picture is up. All right, roll sound.
Rolling.
Roll cameras.
Cam's rolling.
And 3, 2.
Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome to Hank's Think Tank. It is Sunday, sometime in July. I think it's late July, and we're getting ready to change the month out this week. Got Mark Hogan on my left.
Howdy, everybody. Great show today. Do you know where your homeowner's policy is? Do you even know who your carrier is? Here we are in the middle of hurricane season, and everybody needs to know these things. We've got the Texas State insurance guru on the show today. He's seen it all for years and years. He's tornadoes, hurricanes, freezes, hazmat situations. This is the guy to talk to. He's been there, done that. Mr. Chip Belcher, welcome.
Hey,
Nice. Thank
Chip
you
Belcher.
Thank you for inviting me to the show, guys.
Hey, no problem, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. So,
Tell me about how you got where you're at and what you do.
So what I do, I'm a Texas public insurance adjuster. I've been doing this since 2017. I started, my career doing insurance, 2016, 2017. I'm trying to think. So basically, I work for a big insurance company. The first thing they did, they put me through 2-week training. Then after that, they sent me to Puerto Rico. Then I was in Puerto Rico for 6 months.
Cool. What were you doing in Puerto Rico?
I was working claims for Hurricane Maria at the time when
Oh,
Hurricane
wow.
Maria hit. And
After
destroyed-
2 weeks of training, that's
after
it.
2 weeks of training.
Wow.
Okay. Then they kind of just put me out there, released me,
Yeah.
and I really showed my colors. I
Yeah.
excelled over everybody that was there. I was one of the last ones to stay.
So you went there as an adjuster after the hurricane, and so you were just filing reports back to the home base.
And which hurricane was that?
Hurricane Maria.
Maria. I don't think I remember.
So you had
Maria.
Hurricane Maria, Irma, and Hurricane Harvey that hit
Oh,
in
yeah,
2017.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so I was working those catastrophes. I didn't get to work from home. It was right after that when I got my stardom as an adjuster. Then basically got deployed in Puerto Rico. Was there for about 4.5 months or so. Then after I left there, came home, got multiple deployments in the Northeast, working the bomb cyclones, and also was working windstorms in Toronto.
Wow. So you were on the road continually, and then come back for our own little hurricanes and stuff like that, I'm sure. And the last few years, we've had a lot of ice storms and deep freezes, which is kind of unusual around here.
Yeah.
So you got a lot
Yeah.
of burst pipes and all the sheetrock and property that goes along with it.
I wonder who'll do all the stuff after Yellowstone blows.
What's that?
I wonder who'll be doing all the adjustments after Yellowstone blows.
There's no telling. There's no telling. I mean, there's a ton of adjusters. IAs that work for the insurance companies, they go through deployments. So on the deployments, it's they basically, the insurance company has rosters. They put you on a roster and they give you the call ready to go for deployment. They basically say, here's your assignment. This is where you're going, but you never know when you're leaving. It's whenever it's done.
Wow. So you get a per diem and all that kind of stuff too, or?
Typically you do. You get a per diem or they pay per claim is the way they typically pay IAs. Now,
Wow.
field adjusters that's working for the carriers are typically on a salary.
Right.
But when it comes to IAs, we're on what they call, it's a fee schedule is what they call it. So the fee schedule is based on the amount of damages that are covered under the policy. Then as much damage they're able to write up for is how they get paid on.
Right.
And it's a tiered schedule. So like from $1 to 5,000 is X amount. From $5,001 to 10, it's another amount. So the higher the amount of damages, the more that the IAs get paid. And
Right.
that's typically how that works.
So you have adjusters and appraisers, and you're both.
Right.
And you used to do that for the insurance carriers, and now you're also independent and for the public for appraising and adjusting.
Correct.
So you are the man.
Yes, sir. So basically, as a public adjuster, I work directly with homeowners. I don't work for the insurance companies. I don't take any, guidelines or anything from the insurance companies. They don't tell us how we operate, how to do things. There's no, like, we follow state statutes, rules, and regulations within Texas Department of Insurance. And our goal is to indemnify the insured to make sure they're put back whole prior to when they had the loss occur.
Right.
And if it's a covered loss, then the insurance owe for the covered loss.
Right.
And our goal is to prove that loss. And inside the insured's policy, there's a section called duties after a loss. Our main objective is to make sure we follow that section of the policy, duties after a loss, to ensure that we can present everything, all the facts over to the insurance company so they can make a payment to the insured.
Right.
And one of the misconceptions that homeowners have is like, well, if the insurance company sends me this payment and I'm not in agreement, I'm not going to cash it.
I've heard that too, yeah.
I get that quite a bit. Oh, I still got the check from the insurance company 4 or 5 months ago, and I don't want to deposit because I'm not agreeing to what the amount they're giving me. In the state of Texas, TDI has set guidelines that the insurance are required to follow. It's which under the Consumer Bill of Rights. And the insurance companies, once they determine that there's coverage and that they're going to pay for this coverage, they have a certain amount of days to get that payment to the insured's hands.
Right.
And that is the duty of the TDI that the carrier has to follow, or they're going to get nailed for penalties and interest.
Okay.
And so if they don't follow those to a T, which as a PA, we track these things. We track the days that they take to respond. We track how long it takes for them to do the inspection and create an estimate to present to the insured. We track everything. And our goal is to make sure they follow their contractual duties to the insured, and to make sure they follow everything so that way the insured can be put back whole. And
So what happens if you are in disagreement with the amount of money they give you? What do you do as a homeowner?
So as a homeowner,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple things. You get a contractor, you get some quotes, get as much information you can on the damages. Get a contractor to get up there and take a look at your roof. Have them show you photos, track photos. And if you have damage to a roof, which has a storm created opening, missing shingles, you got a leak inside.
Yeah. Document everything.
Document everything. And the biggest thing right now, again, under that duties after a loss, is to mitigate your damages. If you don't mitigate the damages, and you incite that, like, say, for example, you had an open hole in a roof from when a tree impacted it.
You
Or
got
on
to
the
at least
side of the
cover it
building.
so that you don't suffer further.
So you got to get the tree off the roof, and you got to get a tarp on that roof to prevent any water damages from coming in and causing further damages.
I got you.
And
'Cause
document what that costs to do all
Exactly.
that, and say, this is part of my damages, right?
Correct. And make sure you save all receipts, photograph as much as you can, document everything you can, because the number one thing about insurance companies that it's the burden put on the insured to prove the loss. If they can't prove the loss, then the insurance company is not going to pay for the loss.
Right.
So, for example, you had damage, but you had a contractor come in, take everything out, repair it,
Fix it
replace
all,
it,
yeah.
but nobody took photos. And if there's no photos to show that damages was from a covered loss, insurance company's not going to pay it. And that's the biggest thing I run into right now.
Wow.
Is that fact that homeowners
Document, take pictures. You got to be able to prove you were hurt by this whole thing.
correct.
Huh.
And so if you don't document, you don't photograph, you don't have a way to prove it, then the insurance company won't pay it. And that's where it's going to put back on then the insured or the contractor is going to refer the homeowner to a PA, or the insured, looks up a PA on Google or whatever,
PA being public adjuster.
Correct. PA being a public adjuster. You can find reputable PAs by going to TAPIA. TAPIA is a Texas Insurance of Public Insurance. Texas Association of Public Insurance Adjusters. You can go to their website. If you're anywhere in the state of Texas, there's a whole list of us that's on that site that are reputable and that can help the insured.
So y'all don't define
insurance.
dollar amounts. You just prove loss.
So we prove the loss, and basically we photograph, we document everything. We obtained photographs from contractors or from the homeowners.
Okay.
We will present our case to the insurance company to have them come out to either do a reinspection, or we'll have them come out and do, or even readjust our position based on a photograph that we present to them, with any estimates or any kind of documentation from the contractor showing, hey, this is its damage, this is what the cost is going to be, and our goal is to come to a reasonable settlement amount to get the insured back to pre-loss condition. So if they had roof damage and the contractor came and said, hey, this is what it's going to cost to do the roof, all right, so I obtain that documentation. I present everything to the insurance company. And if they only had 14 shingles and the roofer has a full roof replacement, then at that point, then they'll either do a reinspection or they're going to send an engineer. Typically, when they send an engineer, the engineers are going to look at one thing. They're always going to deny it. Very few engineers ever get a claim overturned for where they pay for the roof. Very few.
Yeah, because they're engineers.
So the way engineers work, engineers are always going to, side on whoever pays them. So if a homeowner pays for an engineer, they're going to write the report based on siding of the homeowner, right?
Yeah.
To show their position. Same thing with the carrier side. If the carrier hires an engineer, they're going to side with the carrier side.
And so then we have the answer of why in the world does it take so long to get taken care of in a lot of cases, because all this is going on behind the scenes.
Correct.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of negotiations, a lot of back and forth. Some carriers just want to get these things settled and off their desk, and they're going to be like, okay, what is it going to cost to get this thing closed out? And that's when I come up with a number on the average cost per square of the roof, plus the damages, from gutters or fencing, stuff like that. And we'll present a number to them, and they're either going to take it or they're going to renegotiate that number to where we can make sure the insurer gets back whole.
Right.
And so sometimes that works as well, sometimes it don't. Then if they're just unwilling to settle, they're unwilling to take the facts that we present to them to show the damages, and they just like, no, we're going to just keep the claim closed. Then at that point there, it kind of puts us into a position where we can't do anything further other than having to move the claim to legal.
Yeah.
Then we have to, refer the client over to legal, then legal will then do their magic to get the thing settled. And that's basically, where we're at on it, is like our goal is to do the best we can to negotiate with the insurance company is to put the insured back whole. And we have to prove that documentation with photographs,
Right.
Videos, anything like that.
Yeah.
And the number one thing to do that is we rely on a lot of the stuff on homeowners and contractors that are the first ones there
Right.
after the loss.
First ones on the scene.
To get those photos and stuff, because when people start hiring us to come involved, a lot of times like it's months later or even a year after the loss has happened and
Wow.
things have already fixed, been done. And then at that point, I basically rely on documentation to kind of help prove that if it's not still
Right.
showing damage.
Have you run into, in your travels, a lot of shady things going on where someone's trying to do something? I know you don't confront them, and arrest them.
No.
But how do you report something like that? Like someone's trying to get over on the insurance
Like
company
a fraud thing?
and bank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's fraud that happens on both sides. There's times, there's organizations that help PAs and homeowners to help fight fraud that insurance companies do. There's organizations, nationally known for that. And there's, and there's homeowners that create fraud, and there's all kind of people. There's contractors, PAs, there's a lot of people
Yeah.
that, try to get over. But however, I mean, when it comes to fraud, I mean, a lot of those things, it has to be proven and all that stuff, and has to be intent and all that stuff. But, as far as like, as far as fraud, I mean, it happens on both sides
Right.
for the most part.
I know somebody who's selling a house that will remain nameless. And the realtor said, "How old is your roof?" "Roof's fine, never leaked, looks good. I think I had a cap replaced years and years ago." "Well, why do we need to change the roof?" "Well, because it's, 15, 20 years old and it looks okay and it doesn't leak, but it'd be good to have it for sale. Hey, we got a new roof on this house." And the homeowner kind of didn't really know if she should do that, and the realtor made it real easy for her and brought her own roofer. What do you know? You need a roof. You got hail damage, and you're on your last legs. You're going to need a roof. And so now she's dealing with her insurance company, and, well, they're not going to replace that roof with a brand new roof, and you can't build an old roof. So I don't know where that's going to go, but the whole thing just struck me as real squirrely. Have you seen anything like that before?
All the time.
All the time.
I have a lot of clients where it's like, well, I'm in the process of selling the house and I need a new roof.
Yeah.
But I had a roofer come out and say, hey, I have damage from hail. And it's like, okay. So again, it's the documentation, the research that we're able to do. When did the hail event happen? Was it within the policy inception period? Was it before your policy period? If it was before your policy period, who did you have before? Because
it can get real complicated.
It gets a little complicated. Then we have to do research. We have wind and hail maps that we can track down the date of loss. For example, like May 16th, we had the big hailstorm that came through that had tornadoes and everything else that most of the city was involved in. And so we have that. We can track down dates. We can track down weather stations that are near the house to get determination of how strong the winds were that happened. So
and hail reports of different
areas.
areas.
Reports. We get all the documentation.
Well, you just can't get away with anything these days.
I know. They make it tough, don't they, Hank?
Yeah.
Because,
all them cameras and stuff.
The biggest thing is you got people that are trying to sell a house and they need a new roof, right, because it's damaged. Or you get people that are like, hey, my neighbor, got a new roof, and the neighbor next to them got a new roof. Then all these other neighbors got new roofs. And so the roofer knocked on my door and saw I had hail, damage. And so now I think I'm going to file and get a new roof. And so more times than not, I get that more than anything. And so again, we have to track down a date, figure out when the hailstorm happened, any documentation. Do you have video showing the hail happened outside your house?
That's a good
Did you
point.
have hail damage to your vehicle? Did you file a claim for your vehicle to get the hail dings out of your car? Any collateral that we can find. Did your neighbor have a camera? Did they show they had hail? Like something to show that hail happened.
Wow.
Collateral that we look for. Not only the roof is damaged, because the roof damage could be several things. It could be blistering, marring. It could be mechanical damage. It could be manufactured, defects that happen to the roof. A lot of these things could imitate impacts from hail.
Right.
And so in a lot of the insurance companies, one thing that's excluded is marring, blistering, wear and tear.
Yeah.
Okay,
A limb falls on it and rolls off, and we made a dent. Maybe it doesn't leak. Maybe it does.
When you have a tree limb that falls and it hits the roof, what causes a tree limb to fall? Typically, it's going to be wind. Wind is a covered peril. Therefore, that damage that limb caused your roof would be a covered, insurable peril in order for but the thing is how much damage that limb caused. Did it puncture through the decking? Did it cause water leaks inside that caused more damage? There's a lot of...
It could have been a bird nest in that limb. There's environmental damage right there,
So a lot of things. Now if you had a tree that just overgrown and was just like up on your roof, and when the wind blows it rubs, when you get that tree rub, then that falls under a maintenance issue.
Reasonable maintenance, I would
you failed
imagine.
to maintain trimming your trees and stuff like that, so they wouldn't cover anything like that.
But there are minimum coverages, I'm sure, if for nothing else than to satisfy the mortgage company that they're going to be able to recoup if something happens. But there is a wide array of different coverages you can get, and then deductibles would vary and all that kind of stuff. Flood insurance or no flood insurance. I don't know if you can check no in that box. I wouldn't recommend it.
Well, the biggest thing is when you're looking for an insurance policy, you want to first off, you want to read the policy. You want to know if it's an ACV and RCV policy.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
So an RCV is replacement cost.
Okay.
Basically, if it costs $30,000 to replace your roof, you're going to get $30,000 for your roof, minus depreciation.
That's what I did. Was
Right.
that replacement?
So now there's a couple of different policies that are out there that give you a misconception of RCV. You have what they call an RPS schedule. It's a roof payment schedule. It's called an RPS endorsement. And so you want to stay clear from those RPS endorsements. Those typically get put in place if your roof is 15 years or older. If your roof is 15 years and older, insurance companies on your next renewal will put in what they call an RPS endorsement. Therefore, makes your RCV roof basically ACV. So what they're going to do, they're going to apply a percentage based on the age of the roof. That's the most you're going to get on that percentage base-wise, based on the age of that component. So if say you have a 30-year architectural laminate shingle and it's 15 years old, and you look at this chart and you look at 15 years, it's going to give you 50%. And that 50% basically means the most you're going to get if they give you the full roof is going to be up to 50%.
Right, and you're on the hook for the rest of it.
Plus, you still got to pay your deductible, on top of that as well, which actually makes that a lot lower. So one thing to steer clear from is RPS endorsements.
Wow.
Fortunately,
my roof is new, so yeah.
I think typically what happens is people are buying a house, and they get down where they're signing 150 different times, and here's going to be your insurance company, and here's your policy. Okay, and it goes into a box in the closet, never to be thought about again.
Correct.
And
you need to be an actuary to read the shit anyway.
Well,
you do. It's
unfortunately,
ridiculous.
I think a lot of it is in lawyerese, and it's a little tough for the layman to go. What's that acronym stand for? Let me go back a couple of pages.
So one thing about insurance policies, they make it confusing to a standard person to read one, because when you start reading into a policy, it's going to show you have coverage. Then you read a couple pages down, then it shows you it's excluded.
Yeah.
Then when you read the
So it's a
exclusions,
scam, basically, is what it is.
Then when you read that exclusion,
Well, they're in the money in the business to make money, not pay claims.
Well, I mean, everybody else is too, but everybody else usually operates with some ethics there.
Well,
I mean, they can't say you
you're
have
right.
coverage, but you only have coverage on Wednesday between 11 and 9.
You got to be
Yeah,
a
that's
lawyer
bullshit.
to read it,
Yeah.
right, and understand it,
Yeah.
and read the whole thing. And it's the same thing with your tax code.
Tax code's bullshit
Same
too.
thing too. Yeah.
but yeah, so I mean, so insurance companies and their attorneys really make it hard when they write these policies for a standard person that
Right.
typically don't read policies.
Yeah.
Where it's
And
like,
they know that.
well, I got coverage. It says I have coverage here, but it's excluded for these perils. insured
Because it
against.
happened on a full moon on a Tuesday. We
Odd
don't
numbered
cover those days.
addresses are
Yeah.
not covered.
But for example,
Odd numbered addresses on Tuesday.
like for an example, landscaping, shrubbery, trees, bushes, stuff like that.
Yeah.
People think, hey, I have insurance. It's covered.
It's
right?
expensive stuff.
It's
yeah.
expensive,
Yeah.
right? And say that they had hail the size of grapefruit that fell.
Wow.
And it just destroyed their trees. They have a tree they just bought and they paid $1,500 for it.
They can definitely
And
show
that
a
hail-
loss right
yeah,
there.
and
right?
they can show it, and they just had it planted, and that hailstorm just completely obliterated that tree.
Thank God for insurance.
So what do? They file a claim, all right? Not only for their house, but for all the landscaping damage and all that stuff, because maybe they paid somebody $6,000 to do all the landscaping,
Right.
and it just destroyed everything. Well, then they get the insurance adjuster to go out there and be like, well, there's I can cover your house, but there's no coverage for your landscaping. And I've had that several times where people file a claim and it's just for landscaping, and it's like, well, if you see here, you have coverage. However, if you look at the exclusions, you have coverage except when it's a wind and hailstorm.
But
So-
here's the thing that pisses me off. You don't get your policy until after you've paid.
Correct.
So how are you supposed to know what all your exclusions and all that crap is? You've already paid these people.
Mhm.
I mean, that's not how it works when you go, and this is going to be a crazy
Well, then you have
analogy.
a chance, I bet, to get an addendum.
But when you go and buy a cheeseburger, it comes with all the crap that's shown in the picture. They don't say, okay, well, you've paid, and this one only has mustard and
Well,
pickles.
Technically,
because,
Hank, you're buying what that looks like, and sometimes it doesn't look
well,
like
I mean,
what-
it's not as pretty, but it's got all
Right.
the same crap on it. You know what I'm saying?
generally, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you buy a car, it comes with wheels.
There should be
I mean,
Burger
yeah.
King
But your
insurance.
policy comes. Last time we switched insurance companies, I think it took 2 weeks or maybe even longer to get our policy. We had already paid. We already had our payment plan and
They couldn't
ACH
even send you a
and all that
PDF
thing.
of it.
No, you don't get that crap from them, man, because they write all them exclusions and stuff after you've already paid, and they base it on an area and how many claims that area's had and all that crap, don't they? Yeah.
Right.
See, that's bullshit.
So
It's just bullshit.
So the main person that does the policy is going to be your underwriter. It's going to be the insurance underwriter. The underwriter is going to determine everything
See,
per
that,
person.
and that right there should tell you everything.
Underwriter.
Underhanded underwriter.
Underworld.
Yeah, that's it. Anytime you use the word under, there's a problem.
But the biggest thing is like, when you do get the policy, so a lot of people, if you have insurance companies, it doesn't matter, it's through, Big Red, Big Blue, they're all going to have agents.
Yeah.
These agents should be able to break down everything for you. Now, a standard homeowner, I have one right now where the homeowner never even knew he had to have insurance. Didn't know. The mortgage company say, hey, we're going to put insurance under your house. Yeah. So the mortgage force places insurance policies just like they do in Puerto Rico.
Right.
And the thing is, they're only insuring the building. They're not insuring any contents.
Right.
They don't care about
People.
ALE, which is your additional living expense. So that way you can go stay in a hotel while you get your house
They're
fixed.
just
You get
insuring their own
Exactly.
interest.
It's
Right?
literally just the house.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm fighting for now, is to make sure they're fairly compensated for the damages for the house. But because the policy doesn't have ALE, it doesn't have content, so everything inside the house is a loss, total loss. And so there's nothing I can do about that, which I feel really bad, because if he would have just bought insurance, he would have been fully
The
covered.
facts are the facts. Check your
And so-
insurance, people.
And the biggest thing is you have to read the policy. So if you pay for an insurance policy, take the time, read it, know what's covered, know the items that are excluded.
Hang on. I just want to do a quick poll. Mark, you ever read your insurance policy?
Not cover to cover.
You ever read any of it at all? I mean, other than Mark Hogan with your address.
The duress is correct.
Me too, man. I really, and I know you're supposed to read contracts, you're supposed to read policies and all that.
Well, I
but
gotta think-
again,
I got a thing from the mortgage
they
company.
should have at least two. When they send you a policy, they should have the policy and they should have explanation of policy. And so the explanation of policy should be a line item thing that gives it to you in layman's ordinary terms. That's instead of saying, you're not indemnified, blah, 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 and all that. Hey, if this happens on Tuesday at 7 p.m. and it's going to be a full moon that night,
Odd
you're
numbered
not
address.
covered. Yeah, an odd numbered address, you're not covered. But that's not mandated. And I think that's where the big problem is. And even people who have a pretty high intelligence quotient either don't have time, figure it's going to be okay.
The
or-
law's on their side.
the law's
they've
on
gotta
their
be
side. Just
covered.
all these things prevent them from. I don't even think I opened mine, to be honest with you. I think it's still at the house, still in a sealed envelope. I just made sure it was me and my address was correct.
All right.
Because I knew that once I got into it, I would want to, it's like I got a gun in one hand, a policy in the other. What feels better to me? So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with
Well,
it.
just make sure, when you when you buy an insurance policy, make sure it includes anything for wedding
I think that
rings,
should be up to the agent
scheduled
also.
losses.
The agent should be able
But
to
you-
sit down
right.
and explain it all
But
to
you should, and I did this years ago, and I haven't done it in 15 years. Take a picture and document all your important things if they have serial numbers on them, and photograph them to show that they exist, for one thing,
100%. So the biggest thing you want to do, before you have a loss that happens, documentation. Document
Video
everything
all
in
your
house.
stuff.
Take a video camera, take some pictures. Unless you have fancy equipment like I do, like Matterporting and all that stuff, where you can take 3D, 360 videos and photos, go through and just document everything in your house. If you have a TV, get the serial number. That way we can, be able to research a light kind and quality
right?
product.
And
So
that'll
if you
tell
do
when
have
it
a
was
loss,
made and everything.
Yeah.
we can.
I wonder if
we
there's
can
companies
locate
that do that stuff.
There is. There's companies like Conservio and stuff like that that are content companies that actually will go in, photograph the damages. Unfortunately, by the time they do this, it's
No, but I
after
mean
the loss
companies that'll
happened.
do it before loss.
Before losses. I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
Never had to go through that yet.
That'd be cool though.
That-
be a
that
good
would be an
business
awesome
to be
thing.
in.
Yeah.
Be a great
just to
business to get
document
into.
everything.
Yeah, let me take a picture of all your stuff.
Yeah. But you'd have to have some serious background checks and stuff.
I would think so, yeah.
I
You
know,
don't
I
have to be home while I do this.
Hey man, I've got to come to your house. Be there in about 20 minutes. Bringing some
of
friends.
those contents list I get from some of these mitigation contractors, it's pretty quite extensive. I mean, they will do everything from dining room tables and TVs down to the Q-tip.
Wow.
It's pretty remarkable how some of these content companies can go in detail. Because if you paid for it, they owe, and you replace it, they owe to,
The
Wow.
jewelry and everything. So that's a real diamond.
So,
That's a fake diamond.
Again, jewelry computers, business equipment,
Guns,
stuff like that. Now, those are special liability under your policy. So you have to read your policy because like coats and furs and stuff like that has specific special, limitations to those.
Right.
For like money. So like, for example, if I had $500,000 sitting in my safe in my house and I had a house fire, that money just burnt up. You just can't go to the insurance company. Hey, I had $500,000 in cash.
Yeah,
that
they
completely
only
got
cover
burned
like
up.
$20 worth.
Right. So the most that they're
we're
going
not
to
the
cover.
FDIC.
So you have to look at the policy because the policy has special endorsement limits on those where
Yeah.
it can limit you to $500, $150 depending on your policy, and that's the maximum they're going to give. But however, how are you going to prove it? You have to prove the loss. If
See,
you
I'm the
can't
kind
prove
of
it-
guy, though. And here's the thing: I'm the kind of guy where I'd read my policy, I'd go, okay, well, this is excluded, so I'm taking 10 cents off my payment to you guys. Oh, this is excluded. Okay, I'm gonna take $1.50 off.
No,
I
they
mean,
need
so
a team of
I'll
lawyers to say
exclude
that.
payments if they're going to exclude my stuff.
Well,
It's
see
just
how far you get
bullshit.
with that. You'd have to have a team of lawyers on both sides agree to what the baseline is at that point, and agree to how much you're going to deduct. You can deduct $10. No, we'll deduct $5. I'll meet you in the middle of $7.50. Now the other 1,000 items, you'd be there forever. That's why
I know.
insurance takes forever.
But a lot of times, insurance companies aren't going to dispute a lot of the
Just a
items.
rip off. Yeah.
But if you got photos showing that you had it, you had possession of it, it's just the matter you have possession of that item. And if you can show that it is yours and you documented it, then they typically pay it. They don't typically.
Why wouldn't the insurance companies say, I'm not even sure that's even in your house. You might have got that off the interwebs or something.
I should have said I had a safe full of guns that was right on that wall where the tree uprooted, and it just catapulted that sucker.
Yeah, never
Nobody's
did find
found it yet.
It was full of Uzis. Don't ask for the serial numbers.
Now,
Would you
one thing-
recommend an insurance company, or are you allowed to recommend an insurance company, or where to start looking? Probably what I
Yeah,
should say.
are there better ones and just ones you just want to stay away from?
For
and pro-
collectibles is what
and-
I was getting at.
Okay, so it would probably be not good for him to mention any, but are there insurance companies you definitely want to say, no, I'm not doing this shit because they don't pay?
You're going to get him in trouble.
to be honest, I mean, an insurance company. All the insurance companies out there are for profit. They're out there to
Yeah,
make money,
they're out there to
It's
make
a
money, yeah.
business.
Yeah.
Just like you and I, we're a business.
It's an
and we're
insurance
to make
company,
money.
not an insurance charity.
So I mean,
It
the
ought
thing
to be.
is, the biggest thing is there's a contract between you and the insurance company, and could there be a breach of that contract if they don't pay for something? And that's where our job is to make sure there's not a breach within that, and to make sure they pay for what they can.
Wow.
That's covered under the policy.
Right.
So, I mean, is there an insurance company that's better than the others? I mean, I'm sure, but the thing is, they're all equal.
Yeah.
They're
They're all
all-
regulated, right?
They're all regulated.
They're
'cause
all
gonna
bound
be
by
under department-
contract. It's up to the person to read
Right.
it, the public.
So
to
the,
know
the
what's in it.
contract is all created by underwriters and from their attorneys and everything else.
There's that underword.
And
again.
so the thing is if it's a covered peril and it's a covered item that was damaged from a loss, then it's owed to be paid. Now, how that's paid is different because every adjuster is different. If you hire an adjuster, say for example, y'all both had the same insurance company, and y'all both had the exact same identical loss, exact same house that y'all have door to door,
Okay.
next door to each other. They send an adjuster out. You got an independent adjuster. You have a staff adjuster from XYZ insurance company. And they're both, and it's the exact same loss. Y'all both had a tree that hit the exact same spot in both y'all's houses. This insurance adjuster is going to have one price. This adjuster is going to have a different price. And it really depends on internal guidelines. If this IA works for an IA firm, a TPA company, a third-party administrator that's contracted for XYZ insurance company, then they sent out their staff adjuster with XYZ insurance company. They're going to have different set of internal guidelines versus them, but their internal guidelines are configured to ensure their client, which is XYZ insurance company. And so then when your IA writes an estimate, it has to go through a file review process. That file reviewer is going to look at the photos, the adjuster's estimate, and the internal guidelines set by XYZ insurance.
So the so the adjusters do come out with an actual estimate. I thought they just looked at damages and just like took pictures and said, okay, this is what's wrong, and then it goes somewhere else, and then they decide how much you get.
So
the adjuster actually makes that decision.
correct. The
I didn't know
adjuster's going
that.
to make the decision. So, however, an IA
I should have buttered that guy up yesterday.
in an IA, independent adjuster, they write an estimate, right, through Xactimate or Symbility, depending on who their client is. Then what they do is they have to send it off. They hit the complete button, and what it does, it ships off that estimate into a queue. That queue is then routed to a file adjuster, or I'm sorry, a file reviewer.
Okay.
That file reviewer will then pull it, will look at the photos that the adjuster's taken, with the estimate they created. Then if it's within the internal guidelines that the carrier sends out to the IAs, then if it meets all their internal guidelines and everything's approved, then they'll push it through. Then it goes to the DA, which is your desk adjuster with XYZ Insurance Company. Then once it gets approved by them and their management, that's when they'll contact you and say, hey, we got you approved. It's either you're above or below your deductible, and this is the amount we're going to send you, or we're going to send you a letter because you're below your deductible. Then at that point, if there's a dispute between the amount, say you had a roofing contractor come out and say, hey, your roof is 20 years old on a 20-year shingle, it's brittle, it's unrepairable, they don't make the shingle anymore, then it's, there's proof showing that, hey, there's damage to this thing and I can't make repairs without damaging other shingles nearby, and it becomes a domino effect. Then at that point, yes, the roof, in my opinion, would need to be replaced in order to put the insured back to pre-loss condition. If you didn't have a patch now, why would you accept the patch then?
Yeah.
That's not identifying the insured. So in order to do that, then in order to put you back a like, kind, and quality, then the roof would have to be replaced. Then there's documentation that could be proven to that. They can the roofer could take a shingle from the house, send it to ITEL, which is a third party shingle identification company out of Jacksonville, Florida.
Wow.
Or they could send it to a company called NTS, name that shingle that's out of Dallas, in the Dallas area. So what they do is they actually go through, it's a lab, they process to see what that shingle is, and they'll tell you they'll tell you the manufacturer, the style, and everything. They'll even, NTS will even tell you to the point that if it's even pliable or not. Then if it's not, then they document everything, and they'll also send you letters showing, this shingle can't be it can't be replaced, it's discontinued, or or whatnot, or where you can find
Well,
it.
that's crazy.
Meanwhile, Fred down the street's going, why is it taking so long to get a damn roof on here?
Yeah, a lot of times it takes quite some time. If the adjuster doesn't go right out the gate and write an estimate for the full roof replacement and get it approved, then great. Then it gets approved and they get the full roof. But if they come back and say, well, we're only going to replace 15 shingles, and the roofer comes back and says, I can't do it. First off, there's no warranty to that. Where you had warranty before, and you didn't have any patches before, and now they're making you have a patch.
Yeah.
And if they don't have the like, kind, and quality of the shingle, and they don't manufacture it anymore, you're putting a shingle that's not even compatible onto a roof that doesn't mix. Maybe, years ago they discontinued 20-year shingles. Now the lowest you can go is 25-year 3-tab shingles. Well, the 20-year shingles have been discontinued, and there's a lot of homes still today that got 20-year shingles. Oh
yeah.
And so now you're telling me I got to take a 25-year shingle, which is a thicker material, and put it on a thinner material roof. It's not compatible. So, and those are cases, those are where we have arguments with the insurance company saying, hey, these are our basis for getting this roof replaced. It's an incompatible shingle. And not only that, it's old, it's brittle, and then you go to make the repair on this shingle, well, the shingle above it, you're going to have to open up in order to get the nails out to repair the one below it. And if that creases,
break off,
and the top of that increases, and that increases, it's a ripple effect. It's just going to keep going all the way until you get to the top of the ridge. And so, and those are the cases, also we have to follow the IRC, the International Roofing Code. The International Roofing Code tells us that we have to, it says shall, okay, which is a key word in that thing, is that you shall follow manufacturer specification guidelines. And so then you go to the shingle manufacturer, GAF, Certainty, any of these manufacturers, you pull their specifications, and it says you have to overlap the hips, ridges, and valleys by 6 inches. Well, if the roof is brittle, or it's unrepairable, and you have to overlap the hips, ridges, and valleys, it's going to affect the other side. Then it's going to affect the other side. Then it becomes, again, a domino effect. And again, those are bases of what we can do to provide to get these roofs replaced. So it's all about documentation. proving the facts, documenting the facts, in order to prove the facts. For example, you have homes out there that have decking, right? That's underneath the shingle, underneath the felt.
Right.
If the rafters are 2 foot on center, right? They're 24-inch on centers. A lot of times the IRC specifically states that, well, if it's 24-inch on centers, then you have to have 5/8 for decking. And a lot of the decking I'm seeing is 3/8.
Mine's 3/8 and it's
So-
24s too.
Yeah, so therefore it'd be out of
Yeah.
code compliance. So in order for it to be put up to code, the decking had to be replaced up to the replacement of the 5/8. If your rafters are 24-inch on
You're putting a
centers.
lot more weight on your house at that point, too.
You do, but
My
the
house
thing
can
is,
handle
Then
it.
you got to
My
put
house
your
is
joists up to
tough.
code.
but here's the other thing.
And then your walls, your
Domino
foundation.
effect, man.
Some insurance companies have law and ordinance code upgrade coverage under their policy. If the homeowner doesn't have that, there's a couple insurance companies that that you have to pay additional in order to have that endorsement. And there's most companies it's included up to 10% of coverage A, which is your dwelling limits of liability, 10% of that. But if you don't, and say for example you run into that code compliance issue where the roofer's like, hey, I gotta upgrade your decking, it's out of compliance, but you don't have the code and law and ordinance endorsement under your policy, then the insurance company's not gonna pay it. Then that
Wow.
code, in order for, because what's going to happen is
And these days, decking is high, man.
wood's expensive for sure.
Yeah.
But the thing is, in order for that roofer to stay in compliance, they have to make sure you're up to code. That is what they have to
Yeah.
follow. Just like an electrician, anything else. If you have a house fire and it's the electrical in your house is
Right.
way out of code, that code, law, and ordinance endorsement in your policy is what helps cover that. But if you don't have it, then insurance companies won't pay it.
Right.
Okay.
And
Yeah, they'll tell you you gotta get that thicker deck all over the top of your house, and then we'll replace the roof.
That's it.
So, and sometimes you do that, and there's some roofing companies that'll still do it, even though the insurance companies don't want to pay it, just to get the claim moving. But however, a lot of these roofing companies gotta, follow the, ordinance. And or to follow the ordinance, if it's out of compliance, then as long as we can show that you have the endorsement, that you have the coverage for that, and we fight for those.
Okay, so what's the 3 main things you would tell every homeowner about insurance? If there's 3 main things, 3 top deals.
The 3 main ones,
Yeah.
review your policy.
Okay.
That's number 1. Make sure you have the right coverages. Talk to your agent. If you have weapons, you got jewelry, you got special endorsements that you need to add in, make sure you have that.
Okay.
That's the
There are
most
special companies that cover those collectibles and firearms and that kind of thing.
There
I think.
could be. I think there is. But if you're going to do it as a special endorsement of your insurance policy through your homeowners, just make sure you talk to your agent. Let your agent know what you have. A lot of the agents out there, don't describe everything in detail, but they should.
Well, I think my agent is in California, so they're probably not going to be really wanting to help me out with my firearms coverage. I just get the feeling.
But when you have additional firearms and stuff, because the firearms, they're only covered up to a certain amount. It's either like $500 or $1,500 or something like that. I mean, it's
Good Lord.
and if you have 50 guns, say you're a collectible and you have 150 guns in safes, and your house goes in flames and that safe got open and damaged all your firearms. I mean, the most you're going to get out of that policy is that special limits of liability.
Oh, hell no.
Okay.
So
Number
again,
2,
you got to talk to your agent to make sure you're
Review
properly
your
covered.
policy.
Yep.
So,
Number two, I would say make sure you stay away from the RPS factors,
Okay.
which is your roof payment schedule. It only applies to the roof. So being that we're in Houston, we have high UV raises here, roofs here that are guaranteed 30 years, don't last 30 years. Especially
It's just too damn hot.
especially the heat and everything we have. Make sure you have make sure under your policy you try to stay away. If it's an older roof, there's really not much you can do about it. But if you can, make sure you talk to your agent to stay away from the RPS factor on your roof.
RPS factor.
RPS factor.
So
no
you'll
bueno.
see under your policy, you'll see like when you go through the pages, it'll be like a chart that's based on percentages. And if you see that chart, top of it, it's going to say roof schedule or it's going to say roof payment schedule on top. And that's basically taking your roof from being RCV and converting it to ACV, It's like one of the little hidden tricks they put in the policy.
Okay.
And most insurance companies nowadays are trying to stay away from RCV on roofs. They're trying to make everything ACV because the majority of their claims are roof related.
Okay.
So that would be the biggest thing.
And number 3?
Oh, number 3.
Yeah.
Documentation.
Okay.
Documenting everything. Try to document everything before a loss happens to prove that you had sole possession of those items. It doesn't matter if it's your clothes. It doesn't matter if it's electronics.
Everything you
document
bought.
everything.
Okay.
As possibly, as much as possible. Because if you have a loss, especially if it's unfortunately if it's a fire loss, I mean, a lot of these items that get charred or whatnot are not. You're not going to.
You're not going to be able to tell.
You're not going to be able to tell. I mean, the sticker could melt off of them. It could be burned up or anything. I mean, as long as you can show you had documentation on that, I mean, it makes it a lot easier trying to get the replacement on the contents.
Okay.
And make sure in general you have an RCV policy, not an ACV policy.
Okay.
RCV is replacement cost value versus actual cash value.
Okay.
Now, under the policy, when the insurance company initially pays out a claim, it's going to be ACV minus your deductible.
Okay.
That's your initial check. Then once everything has been repaired and replaced, and you prove with your invoicing or receipts showing you replace these items, then the insurance companies will then release a second check, which is going to be the replacement cost value, up to the amount of what you paid for.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So that's the biggest thing, is that your initial payment would never be RCV up front.
Right.
A lot of times now, I'll stand
Now,
corrected.
did they tell you that? Did they tell you, hey, you're entitled to a second check?
They should. Yeah,
Okay.
your adjuster and stuff will will let you know everything when it comes to that. But just know, if you don't have a contract with a lot of times if you have a contract with a contractor, say for your roof or for mitigation or whatever is doing a rebuild, if there's an actual contract in force, a lot of times the insurance adjuster will not include depreciation. They'll just put everything up front. That way the contractor can get the money, get the stuff replaced, and move on. And there's a lot of times where insurance companies will send out 2 checks. One's going to be your ACV minus your deductible. Then the second check is once everything's completed, they'll send you out that second check up to the RCV amount, or up to the amount that you paid for the item.
I wonder if I should be concerned because, the adjuster was kind of laughing when he was leaving yesterday.
And who do you work for?
He works for the insurance company. He did laugh a lot. Every time I had a question, he'd answer it by laughing first and then answer the question.
Like, dumb question, let me help you out here,
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
Oh,
We'll have to look into that. Was his answer a lot of times?
I got a feeling me and you are going to be clearing that stump out there.
Yeah, probably so.
And it's like, for me, the nice thing about me being a public adjuster is I do appraisals as well for insurance, for the insurance policy. So, for example, if you have a dispute in the amount of damage between your contractor and the insurance company, technically the homeowner and the insurance company, but your roofer or contractor showed a full roof replacement, insurance company is like, no, we're only going to pay for X amount of shingles. And again, repairability factor and all that. Then at that point, in your policy, you can demand appraisal. Then as a PA, I can differentiate between either I'm going to take this on as a PA or I'm going to take this as appraisal.
Okay.
Now, as a PA, I'm only licensed to operate in the state of Texas. As an appraiser, I'm all across the country. I do stuff everywhere from California to Florida.
Okay.
And I travel quite a bit for just the appraisal side. And I do residential, commercial. I basically would go out there. If there's a dispute between the two, then either the insurance company or the policyholder will hire me, and insurance company and policyholder will hire their another appraiser. Then between me and the other appraiser, we'll come to an agreement. We'll come to a number. We'll attempt to come to a number.
Okay.
To put the amount of the loss.
Okay.
The main thing is put an amount of the loss, so that way the insurance company say, okay, this is how much it's going to cost. This is what we're going to pay. And if me and the other appraiser go out there and we can't come to an agreement, say we're just coming in, and we're just butting heads, and we end up coming into an impasse, then at that point, the umpire that we selected from the beginning, we will invoke that umpire. That umpire will then come in, not as a third appraiser, but they are only to rule the differences between my estimate.
Like a mediator.
Yeah, it's basically a mediator. So they'll come in and rule the difference between me and the other appraiser, and that's it. And whatever that umpire says, base it on the arguments and the deliberations between me and the other appraiser and the umpire. The umpire will set the amount of the amount of the loss.
Okay.
And that amount of loss will then get presented back to the insurance company. Then they'll apply any kind of coverage. Say, for example, they paid for the roof in the past, but this roof went into appraisal, but they've already paid it and they never showed it's been replaced. They're not going to pay it again. But say that it didn't happen and there's no coverage dispute, then they'll pay whatever that reward was presented in the appraisal panel.
Okay.
Well, tell us about your company.
Yeah, if a homeowner wants to get in touch with you, what do they do? What do they do? What
So,
do they do?
They got a couple things. So I'm with Belcher Claim Services. I'm located out of Cypress, Texas. And if they want to get a hold of me, there's one or two ways they can do it. They can reach out to my office at 281-547-1344.
Okay.
Or they can contact us through my website, which is www.cbelcherclaims.com. They can go through there. If they have questions about their policy or anything like that, I do free policy reviews.
I was going to ask that very question. Would you be able to consult people to say they don't understand what they've got or what's covered? You can kind of go over with them and say, this is where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they'll, make you some lunch and serve you some drinks and make it worth your while to hang out there for half a day.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, I had no problem. I always do, free evaluations, free, claims assessments and stuff like that. So if they have any questions or they feel that, hey, I might have a potential claim, they can always reach out to me or my office. We'll get everything scheduled. Per state law, we have to be under contract. But a lot of times, like if they just send me their policy and they send me some damage photos and they can submit all this through my website, then I can review those. And if I review it and say, I'll get back to them pretty quickly once I review it. And I'm like, look, this is what you have. If you have some tree limbs that just landed out in the front yard but did not land on any covered property, which is your house, your fence, if it didn't cross your driveway, which is your only access to your in and out of your house, then they'll pay to remove the tree off of those items. And so what they'll do is they'll pay up to the limits of liability to chop and drop the tree off the covered structure. Then they'll pay a certain amount, either $500 or up to $1,000 for haul away. And those are the two key things. It's like if you get a tree company, they know as a tree service, they got to separate between chop and drop and the haul away. And so haul away is always going to be capped. Chop and drop is going to be up to your limits of liability, but it has to be reasonable.
Sure.
Because I worked in the Northeast where they're, having cranes, all this stuff, because you had 80-foot pines and stuff up there. And it's costing the most I've seen was $15,000 with a crane to take a tree off a house. And so,
Yeah, I just move. Yeah, that's what I want to just leave it there and move,
But I mean, those are the number one things doing that. But yeah, I do. Like I said, I do free policy reviews. I can look at it. If they question, if they even have questions about their policy, if they feel like, hey, I haven't had a loss yet, don't have a claim, but I just want to make sure I have the right policy or whatnot.
Right.
I can also review it and say, hey, I see you have an RPS. Talk to your agent and see what it's going to take. You might have to pay for an additional endorsement to get rid of that RPS, because if you keep the RPS on that roof payment schedule, then it's potentially going to hurt you when you go to replace the roof.
Yeah, I bet
you can answer all those questions.
I can answer all
Okay.
those.
Well, Chip, we appreciate you coming in, man. It was a good conversation. And again, I learned something because I didn't know hardly anything about insurance or adjustments or appraisals and the way it went. So
I think the average guy's in that same boat. See what you got in your insurance policy. Document what you have in your house. And give Mr. Chip Belcher a call. If you have any questions, he'd be glad to help you.
There you go.
Thank you, guys.
Well, there you have it, guys. Another fine entertainment segment from Hank's Think Tank, including, but not limited to, see how I use that insurance jargon?
That's pretty good, man.
Including, but not limited to, Mark Hogan. For Mark Hogan, I'm Hank Vatt. This is Hank's Think Tank, and we're gone. See you later.